Afzal Hussein, the
Yes.
one,
What's going
the
on,
one
man?
and only.
You good?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. Can't complain. Alive and well.
Yeah, exactly. Lockdown life treating you well?
Y-
How's that going?
Yeah, you know what? I say this to a lot of people. I actually don't mind lockdown. I kind of like it. Obviously, it's a bit
Mm,
controversial view, but obviously, I want lockdown to be over. I see friends and family and that.
yeah.
But I don't mind it, man. I'm all right with it. Yeah.
I'd say that's a unpopular opinion. Let's say I don't know. I think a lot
Yeah.
of us want to go out and explore. But yeah, it's a good way to, or it's almost like a forced environment you like to make you focus and reprioritize or whatever. So yes, I know some
Yeah.
people have definitely come out the other side of it. And if you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos,
Yeah.
uh,
Nice.
you're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, it's a pleasure having you on Climbing the Rungs. I think I've been following you for a bit, your YouTube channel. I'm not even interested or in finance, but I find a lot of all the content you put out really good. So I can only imagine how
Uh,
useful and interesting it is for
I
people.
appreciate that.
Of course, man. So when to getting you on here is a pretty cool moment for me, but more importantly, it's the story that we can tell and how that can help support, inspire others.
Yeah.
But it'd be great to get some of your thoughts on some kind of issues that say or challenges aligned to socioeconomic disadvantage, given the experiences you've had. So really excited to have you on here, and ready for this conversation.
Yeah, man. Sounds good. Let's get straight into it.
Savage, brilliant. So I typically like to start off these conversations just learning a little bit more about my guests' backgrounds. What's your backstory? Where's
Yeah.
Afsa Hussein from? Tell
Yeah.
us the beginning.
Yeah. No. So I grew up in Northwest London, so grew up in Camden, council estate. Grew up on an estate. Predominantly, there was a lot of uh, brown, Asian, and black kids around where I grew up. There were quite a few white kids as well. Quite a diverse environment. My mum was a single parent, so she raised five of us. So it was me. I've got two older brothers, a younger sister, and an older sister. Um, so yeah, man, my mum raised all five of us, single parent on benefits, free school meals, all that stuff. And yeah, she just kept us focused, kept us on the straight path. Around us, typical council estate upbringing. It's like I feel like a lot of people might look at that background and be like, "Oh, disadvantaged," and I think we could sometimes do that as well, disadvantaged background. But I feel like I had a very privileged background. Um, you know, Going to youth clubs and
Interesting.
all of that.
Yeah.
I value the upbringing that I've had, but at the same time, I understand that in the world, there's a lot of inequality from a socio-economic standpoint. So yeah, man, typical council estate upbringing, man.
That's that's an interesting the way you kind of saw yourself as
Mm,
privileged, let's say, given your background. I think it's quite I could probably connect to that as well.
yeah,
That I didn't think or feel that I was quote unquote disadvantaged
yeah, yeah,
only until maybe I got to like university and
yeah.
you
You
started to meet.
realize, trust me, because growing up, you're not like as a kid growing up, you don't know that apparently you're disadvantaged compared to a lot of the world out there, right? So you're just growing
Yeah.
up, living life, chilling out, going out, whatever. Only when you get older you realize that, oh shit, am I allowed to swear? No, I'm not going to swear actually.
Yeah, probably
Only
not. But yeah,
when you, my bad, only when you
no
grow up,
worries.
get older, you realize, oh, some of these people are getting further than me because they're connected, they're well connected, they
Yeah.
know so and so, XYZ. And so you're like, okay, your eyes open up a bit more. But that's
Yeah.
kind of the bubble that you grow up in to a certain extent.
It's like being in an echo chamber, like you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
say.
yeah,
It clouds your perspective on life, and then you get to uni or whatever moment it is for you, and you start hearing, oh yes, I'm going skiing with my, oh what's skiing? What's that?
trust
Oh
me.
okay.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
check it out, you're like, oh that's skiing, that's how much it
yeah,
costs. And it's not no skiing
trust
as an
me.
example in this case,
Oh,
it's
what, you
it's
go skiing every year? Oh, you've been going skiing since you were 8?
oh you have a
Skiing
chalet out in
costs.
Verbier. Yeah,
Yeah,
me
man,
too.
skiing costs dough. So yeah, bro, I came like when I was at Goldman's, and I'm sure we'll talk about all of that. But
Mm,
like, yeah, skiing was a normal thing to like 99% of people there. I've never been skiing. I would
mm.
be going to Turkey, Egypt, bait holidays and not skiing. Like, man, yeah, it was different. Yeah,
Yeah. And it's not like, that's not a bad thing, you know. It's
Skiing
fun.
is
I'm sure,
sick. I've heard skiing is solid. But yeah,
it
just
looks
didn't grow up. Yeah, exactly.
you know, it's, and then you realize, wow, we all have the same 365 days a year, but we live it very differently. You know,
Yeah,
we have,
yeah,
and that shapes our perspectives and gives us certain skills or not, and behaviors are developed. And you know, it is a moment when you realize, actually, I am maybe a bit more disadvantaged than I thought. So that's quite
yeah.
interesting. And shout out to your mum, man. Five kids, single
Shout out to my
parents.
mum. She's the real OG.
That's the real one, because when you think about
Yeah,
it, it's like, only as I've gotten older, because my mom is also a single parent of five too, so
ratings,
we're
man.
connected. Yeah,
Yeah,
so I can definitely, I think, wow.
yeah, man.
You know,
Trust me.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, but in a country that they're not from, you know, as well, like, it's a real interesting demonstration of like strength and resilience, and it's something that I don't think I could do, to be honest. But
yeah.
um
I think
mm,
a lot of us, our generation, we forget that our parents came here like they were on the motive of survival and making something for their
yeah,
kids, and we're lucky that we've like our parents have done well for us so that we can go and we can be lucky enough to pursue entrepreneurship and do YouTube and all
yes,
this, and the world is our oyster thanks to them. So I think a
yeah,
lot of young people and people our age forget about that, what their parents, especially, parents of color, migrants, whatever you have it,
first, yeah, yeah.
they've
Mm.
it's because of them they paved the way for us. Yeah,
You,
it's
you
important.
say something that was quite interesting there around the survival mentality, you know, and I can definitely connect with that. So,
Yeah.
in the sense that, you know, our parents were doing things that they thought were like a necessity to
Mm,
get to live, right? Like, they weren't really trying things out of passion, let's say, because that might not necessarily be what, you know, provides, you know,
yeah.
a certain type of lifestyle. And I'm
Mm,
sure we'll come on to it later, but it's just, as we're at this point now, you obviously, your parents have, or your mother, has sacrificed, let's say, she's in this survival mentality. You now then
mm,
get into Goldman, which
mm,
obviously is providing you a certain lifestyle, and then you
yeah.
left that lifestyle. How did your mum react to that? Was there any kind of discussion around that, where, you
Bro,
know,
you know
or
what?
was it?
My mum's, I like to think, I was gonna say my mum's like me, or I'm like my mum, quite rational. Think about the big picture first. Don't make any rash
Mm,
decisions. Take your time before you decide. My mum's always been supportive of me. One of the big factors that helped me, was that my mum trusted my decisions. So, building up to that point
mm,
of, oh, I'm gonna leave the world of banking and, start my own thing. I, I showed her, look, previously I've taken decisions and they've worked out. And look, it's always, and I tell a lot of students this when I talk at unis, always have your safety net, have a plan, have an option that you can fall back on. So for me to leave the world of banking, to leave Goldman, etc., it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to quit and risk everything, on entrepreneurship. And if it fails, my life's over. The options
sure.
were, if it fails, there's still going to be another job at Goldman, if not Goldman, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. There's hundreds of companies, banks, etc., and there's hundreds of roles, right? If not consulting, tech companies start, so
Yeah.
on and so forth. But my thing was, you only get this opportunity when you're 25 or 26. Now, to take this risk, and if it works out, great. You do your thing, and you pursue entrepreneurship and the content creator, career. Because it's going to be harder to do that when you're more locked into Goldman, when more of your salary
Mm,
is in stock options and locked up, etc., and when you've got more responsibility. So it's easier to take career risk earlier on in your career compared to later on.
yeah, I love that, and I think that's a great point to mention, and I can connect with that in many ways, because I used to work at LinkedIn.
Mm,
You know, great company, you know, free food, free gym,
yeah, I've
free
heard,
trips
I've heard.
abroad, that tech life, and also
Yeah.
a great salary. And when I told my, you know, although I never told my mom, you know, how much I was earning, because that would be a whole different thing. You know, she'll be dollar signs in her eyes. You know, she'll be
Mm,
just spending that money different ways, but she knew it was affording me a good life, right? So when
yeah.
I left, she was like, oh, when I was talking about it, she was really like, you know, because I think for her, like, this is like this is a big opportunity that you're walking away from. You might not ever get it
Yeah.
again. But I think if you're a bit more rational and you play it out, it kind of does make sense. And I
Yeah.
agree, like, when you're in your mid-20s or so forth, like, you are still incredibly young. And
Yeah.
if you are working in one of these companies and you're leaving, and you're
Mm,
leaving with a good brand and good results and etc., like, oftentimes the door is always open.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's great kind of background to you, man. Shout out to Mama Hussein. I think she's obviously done a good job, and I'm sure there's lots more to
Thank you,
come.
man.
Yeah, sure, sure. I did recently watch one
Yeah.
your latest YouTube video titled "We
Oh
Grew Up in the
yes.
Council Estate." Yeah, yeah, a
Yes.
spoken
Yeah.
word piece, man. That
Yeah.
was
You know
brilliant.
what?
I loved it.
Thank you, man. You know what? I basically I sat down. I was like, all right, because I got a list of video ideas, and I'm like, okay, what should I put out this week?
Mm,
And I was thinking, I just started scripting, and then I was like, I don't know, it just came to my head. I was like, we grew up in the council estates where we had
mm.
black, white, brown, yellow, blue color mates, and then it was just coming out of nowhere, and I thought, all right, you know what? Let me see. This is the beauty of just doing, like, being able to do your own thing. I
Yeah,
just sat there for an hour. I said, all right, I'm giving myself an hour. Let's see what I can create. Poem, rap, spoken word, whatever. So then all that came out, and you break it up, and I realized most things, when you break it up into smaller segments, it's easier, right? So
definitely.
I
That
thought, all right,
definitely.
I'll have a paragraph on free school meals or council estate, runouts, playing football in the cages, all of that. But you know what, I had a whole 32 bars, and then I thought, all right, boom, this is going to be a little video, see how it goes. And then it is all right, man.
No, it
I
was
don't
very
know.
well done. Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised at myself.
Yeah, and it was different from the typical content you put out, right? So it kind of
Yes,
caught me
yeah,
off guard, but in a good way, because I know a lot
yeah,
of the videos are like educational, talking about
yeah,
careers. So I thought, okay,
yeah,
we grew up in the council, so I was like, oh, okay, he's really coming with
yeah.
some lyric, like
I
some
think
rhythm here.
yeah, no, thank you, man. I think it's important. Like, yeah, now I've got 70K subs. Hopefully in due course it will be 100, 500, whatever.
Definitely.
But I don't want to just be like, this is something I'm thinking more and more about, is I don't want to just do like finance, banking, careers videos. All of that is great, but I think a lot of the audience craves to get to know me a bit more.
Sure.
And that builds more of a relationship. And if I could do that, it means I
Definitely.
could connect with more kids from the estates, from like areas that think, oh, they can't get to XYZ, but I could kind of open that door and show them, yo, these opportunities are here. Do this, do this, do this to break through that barrier. Or look, me
Okay.
and you can connect. We might not know each other in person, physically, but I could be your guy online that,
Yeah.
is like a mentor or something online. It's because I don't have that, like in this day and age, and we're going to talk about like the creator economy later on. But
Sure.
it's like, I think it's important to have that as a young person.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that what you see yourself doing more of? Kind of doing
Yeah,
more work that can support, yeah,
I think
younger people.
internet is powerful. So I can sit here in this study and just access a global reach of hundreds of
Yeah.
thousands of young people,
Sure.
kids in India, Africa, America, Europe, everywhere. So it's powerful. And in this day and age, it's a good means to do good, to help people, generate profits, money, revenue, etc., build a business and give back. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's brilliant, man. I look forward to more spoken word. But there was one line that stood out to me in
Mm.
the short video. I think it went along the lines of, "You see young talent that can make it pro, but they hang around with kids that only aim low."
Yeah,
And it got
yeah,
me
yeah.
thinking about, yeah, it got me thinking about perhaps the social challenges that you may have faced growing up. Because I know you said you grew up on a council estate, which in some ways was good and probably has provided you with certain attributes that have helped you
Yeah.
get ahead. But I think that social element, people that aren't necessarily as aspirational as you are or could
Mm.
be, is interesting. So my questions to you, so did you spend time with any bad influences,
Mm.
or was there any kind of negative, bad influence when you were growing up on the council estate? And if so, what helped you break away from them and find
Mm.
your own path?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So that line specifically, you see a lot of talent that can make it pro. Basically, when I was in school, one of my mates, so I was always into football. One of my mates was
Mm,
really good. He was playing for Fulham at their academy. And then outside of school, you're around kids that aren't as focused or aren't into football, whatever. And
sure.
then eventually he got released. And it's like the people you hang around with influence, your mindset, your motivation, dedication, persistence. So that's where that came from. In terms of growing up, bad influences, etc. So I grew up. So in obviously, you know what a youth club is. For anyone
Yeah.
listening or watching that doesn't know what a youth club is, it's basically a center or these used to be centers funded by the government to keep kids off the streets. Basically, they would have table tennis, pool, sports gym, etc., etc. And now, so where I grew up, on one side, so growing up, there was a lot of racism. It used to be one side used to be a lot of white kids, a white
This is at
community. On the
school. Or in the
Not
council estate?
in the estate.
Sure.
So in Camden, in the estate I grew up in, one side was predominantly a lot of white youths. The other side was a lot of Asian, brown, Bengali youths. And there used to be a lot of like beef, a lot of clashes between the two. I used to live right in the middle, basically. Now, and also the funny thing is there were two youth clubs. One youth club all the Asian kids used to go to, and the other youth club all the black and white kids used to go to. So I've got two older brothers, and so they taught me a lot of like my street smarts growing up, how to kind of be aware growing up. And so we used to just go to both youth clubs. We were blessed with everyone. So one of those ones. So
you're cool with everybody.
Yeah, like we never really used to hang around like, as part of a gang or on the streets or smoke weed or do drugs or sell drugs, all of that. But we were cool with everyone. So we would nod our head, say what's up to both sides. And everyone kind of knew us as, yeah, these lot are blessed. They're cool. They just focus on their football. They're just doing their thing, whatever. So we never really got involved, which was good. And I think a lot of that came down to, once again, my mum's parenting. Like she would let us go. A lot of like my mates wouldn't be allowed to go to the youth clubs because of the other kids that were there. They weren't like the most well-behaved kids. They were a bit rough. They were into drugs, all of that. But my mum trusted us. We went to both youth clubs, went to lots of trips and all of that. But we never really got involved in like all the negative influences that were around us. So that trust, I think, came early on. And yeah, I think it did us a lot of good. Character building, very, very important.
Sure. So you would say in terms of like socials, like the youth clubs, they were quite helpful in kind of separating you from or keeping you off the streets, let's say, where you could have maybe found like more negative influences, perhaps.
Yeah, like after a while, youth club funding got cut down, so a lot of these kids were on the streets, and so there was more postcode wars, there was more selling drugs, there was more usage of drugs. A lot of kids were going in and out of prison. One of the youth club manager, he like is constantly going to court cases, going to solicitors, trying to back these kids because he knows all of them inside out, and the relationships that you build in the youth club are tight. So yeah, the youth clubs grow you as an individual, develop you, and it just gives you an outlet as opposed to just staying home and doing nothing else.
Yeah, like I know I've been to a few myself, and that 1 hour and a half or 2 hours that you're somewhere else building a bond with a few other people and not doing whatever, it does make a difference, and it's such a shame to have seen that funding cut.
Trust me, man, trust me.
It's a big, have you seen like any kind of
so the youth club that I predominantly grew up going to, funding got cut, but then they turned into a charity, and so every year they do applications to charities and they get funding, but it's like they've only got enough money in the bank to last till next year. So it's like it's game over if they don't get that funding.
Being so reliant on outside funding. That's interesting though to kind of see those kind of challenges that you could have had, and how youth centers and youth clubs were a great kind of opportunity to avoid those. It's also nice to be in it kind of cool with everybody, because I know that if you're stuck, sometimes you can be stuck in the middle, and people want you to pick a side or something. It can get a bit sticky with loyalty or whatever, but it's
imagine this. I had a mate, he was like cool with one side, but he lived on the other side. I was like, are you nuts?
Wait, he lived on the side where
he had beef with.
Listen,
I know, man.
But these things want trouble.
I mean, when you're a teenager, 16, 17, like you don't take things as seriously. All of these people that I grew up with, you see over time, they just get a bit more serious in life. They realize that they wasted time on the roads, and they're a bit more focused now, which is good to see.
That's good. Yeah, I think there's a wake-up call, and you have to grow up eventually if you're fortunate enough to be in that environment where things don't go the other way. But no, that's great. Thanks for sharing. It's good to get a bit of a deeper insight, into some of the experiences you've had, and I can already start to see how that might have shaped some of the things you're doing now. I think that street smarts you refer to could often be called gift of the gab as well, which is very useful, when you're working with clients, in what you were doing in asset management. So, it does
helps out, man. Yeah,
it does, right?
Gives you smart. Yeah, it's useful.
Yeah, sure. So I want to touch on education a bit more. I know you went on to study economics
Mm,
and finance at Queen Mary University, but I want to know a bit more about the years before that, Afzal. So
mm.
where did you go to school? What was your kind of like, high school education experience like? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I went to standard state school, no like private school, nothing like that. You know what? Like, uh, so there's obviously state schools, and then you've got on the other end private schools, extremely expensive fees to get in, and then in the middle you've got the grammar type of schools where you need to
Hmm.
do tests to get in. I didn't even realize those existed until like I was at uni, because a lot of my peers came from like grammar school and that.
Oh,
So, and I mean, how are we meant to know that? Like my mum didn't have a clue, right? And everyone in
yeah,
that community didn't have a clue. So it's like, all right, boom, the nearest school, that's where they go in. And if your brothers and siblings get in, that's where you're going. So yeah,
yeah.
standard school, nothing like special. Went to school near Edgware Road. So um, it was North Westminster Community School at the time, and then they changed it into Westminster Academy. This is
Okay.
when all the schools were changing into academies. Um, and yeah, I did all right. GCSEs, I was focused. Always, I used to be a naughty kid, but my grades were on point, so I used to get away with it, right? So school was just football grades, and then I left school, went to a college, and this is where I did my A levels. So I did maths. The first year, I did maths, physics, biology, and geography. And then that year, I wasn't
Hmm.
focused, man. I literally wasn't on it. I got a D, a E, a U, and a U, and I was like, oh shoot,
Ooh, wait,
game
hold on.
over.
So,
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah, go on.
you got so this is your first year A levels, right? And
Yeah,
you
man.
got a D,
Yeah,
an E, a U, and a U. Okay, just
yeah.
to because I don't mean to laugh, I don't mean to laugh.
It's cool,
But
man.
obviously,
It's part
I
of
did
the
A
it's
levels,
part of the
obviously.
journey, innit?
Exactly, I'm sure, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you credit a lot to it. And for people that might not know like what this is, so there's multiple different things you can do before you go to university. But what's
Mm,
very well known of is what's called A levels, and
yeah.
let's say 2-year course, let's say, or 2-year kind of period of your high school education where you are studying to achieve a qualification to get into university.
Mm,
And the grading system, I believe, it might have changed now, is from like an A star to a U. An A
yeah.
star being like the top grade, a U being not the top grade, let's say.
Mm.
I remember I've always been fairly smart. And I got in my AS, I got A, B, C. And I
Oh,
remember
nice. Check
thinking,
you out.
no, I remember thinking this funny thing there, because I don't want to say I was that kid that did well. There's always this group of kids that might, on results day, they get like, good
Yeah.
grade, but they're crying because in relative to what they're aspiring for,
Yeah,
it's
man.
not
They're
that
expecting
great.
straight A stars and they're crying because they got three A's. I'm
Sure,
like,
exactly.
shut up, man.
So I wasn't like that, but I was kind of in the middle. So when I got ABC, I was like, oh God, this isn't
Yeah.
what I need for uni. This is not, I don't know, man. I've ruined it. Come home, mom's Nigerian. So just like, what is this? Like ABC.
Yeah, I hear
I'm
you. I
just
hear
like,
you.
well, I think it's good. But that's interesting because if I had got D, E, U, U,
Yeah.
yeah, man, that's so sorry, just interesting that wanted to explain. That would have been very humbling, I think.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
it
tell us
was.
more about like how you managed that experience.
So that first, so I left school sixth form. I went to a college. Now this college is different.
Ah,
I tell a lot of kids, stay at sixth form. Don't go to college, because college you're on your own. It's a change of environment. You know,
yes.
in sixth form, you know your teachers. They'll look out for you a bit more. You can focus a bit better. Anyway, so I went
Yeah.
to this college. I went City and Islington in Angel.
Okay.
And I did maths, biology, physics, and geography. I got D in maths, E in biology, and a U in physics, U in geography. Now that's primarily because from GCSE to A levels, big jump, right? And also,
Yes. Yes.
I wasn't as focused. I wasn't studying as much. I don't even know what I was doing, just wasting time. So got the grades. I was like, ah, boom, my life is over. My mom's gonna slap me up. Asian household, you know. Um, and then I went home and I was like, I felt like my life came crashing down. It was the wake up
Yeah.
call that you need, isn't it? So that was my time. I needed that. My mom was like, all right, cool. It's not the end of the world. Like, retake it if you want. Like,
Yeah.
it's just 1 year. It's not a biggie. So I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I weighed out my options and I thought, all right, I'm going to retake that year. I'm going to take the L. I'm going to use this as a wake up call. And then I left that college, went to Westminster City sixth form, so another state school. A lot of my mates were there that I knew already, and I joined their sixth form. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go there. do 3 A levels, maths, biology, and economics, and just focus. So that 1 year I focused, got straight A's in my AS, so that was good. Then the second year I ended up getting A's and B's. So then I was like, all right, cool. If you focus and put in the work, things start working out. And I was like, all right, that's how it works. Cool. And then it was like uni. So yeah, and then I'll pause it there and then let you carry on.
No, that's I yeah, I don't mean to laugh. Sorry, I just
all
could only
good,
imagine
man.
if I opened up my envelope and I saw that, I would have closed them. But these aren't my grades.
Yeah, I think I laughed at myself, and then it hit me, man. Yeah,
almost like a moment of shock. It's yeah, I agree. I think everyone kind of needs that wake up moment if you're not as serious or whatever, right? To kind of whip you into shape if you like. I think something that you mentioned there that was quite interesting was around the lack of awareness, let's say, around the grammar schools, like not even knowing they existed, right? And so you obviously, I'm sure, like you at GCSE and stuff. So before you could have, let's say, if you had known, or your parents had known, your mother had known, you could have got into a grammar school. And there's something else I'd like to talk to you about, because actually it's around like private school scholarships. So I didn't know about them at all, because a lot of people, I know quite a few friends that have, state school educated for their GCSEs, but then applied for a private school scholarship, got into a private school for 2 years, and then there's this massive upward trajectory. Actually, one of my guests, Leanne, she did that. She got into a private school. I think charges like 50K a year or something.
Yeah, no surprise, man.
Which is outrageous. But sometimes I often think, because around the conversation on lack of awareness for people from lower income backgrounds is usually around like awareness of jobs, but it's also around these other opportunities around like education, right? And I do sometimes think, not to say that private schools to be all and end all, and that is a whole different discussion on its own. But I do sometimes think we clearly have ability, like we've done well, got good grades, whatever.
Yeah, man, for sure.
Imagine like if we had known, or our mum just mentioned, or someone mentioned to us, there's this scholarship at this school, and we applied for it, just and we got it. Like, how different could our lives be? And I think around the kind of social mobility conversation, so much is around a lack of awareness of what's out there. Yeah. And it makes you think, how can we share opportunities to people more at a broader scale, and then leave it up to them for them to say, this is something that's right for me or not, right? But you can't even make that decision if you don't know these things exist.
No, it's
I don't know if it's something you thought about.
It's true. Like it's a shame that, even I feel like a lot of the schools, they like, it's such a tricky one.
It's hard.
I feel like, a lot of the private schools, they offer scholarships, but they don't offer near as much as they should. And then when they do, state schools need to just shout about it a bit more. Like, I feel schools have responsibility to tell the kids and tell the parents. And I don't know, I feel like it's been lost in translation, or the message gets lost somewhere, because for able kids not to be aware of these things until when it's too late, it's a bit of a tragedy in its own right. There's a lot to be done there, man.
It is interesting, because what I found as well is that a lot of the people that I know or know of that have done sixth form private school scholarships, they have those experiences, they do well, but because they've come from a certain place, so they've done well, they've gone on, they've achieved, but they came from somewhere that wasn't as, let's say, polished, and they give back. But they can give back more, because those 2 years at sixth form or a private school really has turbocharged their life, right? If we get more people into these experiences, which then a lot of them do then give back, come back to their school, come back to different communities and share information, like what kind of domino effect would that have? But we're not that we're not, but I just don't think there's enough of them, or that people are aware of it. I think there is something to be done there, but sometimes I often feel like schools don't even know about these opportunities. And it also might be more of a, I don't want to say insidious, but does a school, if they know about these scholarship, does a state school, even if they know about these scholarship opportunities, right, do they want their top performing students to leave and then go to another school, and whereas that could be their one Oxbridge applicant, that could be their one Oxbridge hopeful, and it's their stats. It's their pride. Kind of, it could be their their pride that could be limiting someone else's. It's interesting. What do you think about that?
It's true, man. A lot of it comes down to individuals at the decision-making level at these schools, head teachers, deputy heads, and that. if they care more about the brand and the reputation of the school, I understand that obviously it's their job, whatever,
Sure.
it dictates some of their pay package. But at the same time, if you really care about these kids, you need to open these doors for these kids. If there's a talented kid who displays potential, kids don't need to be getting straight A's and A stars if they go into a state school. You need to think about
Yes.
the contextual grades. Like, you can have a kid that's gone to the roughest school in London, and if they're getting, B's and C's, compare that to a kid who's gone to a private school all
Sure.
his or her life, and they're getting A's and A stars. Just because one's got B's and C's, that doesn't mean they don't have potential. They've probably gone through a harder time rather than being
Yeah.
silver spoon fed, right? So I think a lot of private schools, I don't know if they do or don't, but they can think about contextual grades when a kid
Yeah.
is coming from a state school. But yeah, a lot of it, the teachers, heads and headmistresses need to kind of make sure that opportunities are getting through to the kids.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I'm just reflecting now. So I'm thinking about the people that I know have done those scholarships. And I actually think most of, if not all, found
Mm.
out about them either in like a newspaper or like a
Yeah,
family
yeah,
member
yeah.
told them, but it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily their
No,
state
that's a
school
good point,
telling.
man.
It's really
True.
interesting. And
One school that's
probably,
crushing it though. Sorry, go on.
no, I know exactly what you're gonna say
Yeah,
already.
you
No,
know.
I've got Brampton Manor.
Brampton
Yeah,
Manor, they are killing it. More
that's
kids into Oxbridge than I think Eton or one of the other
yeah,
top private schools, which
yeah.
is mad.
I know where I want my kids to go, basically.
That's it. Send them there,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
It's remarkable actually, and I've been looking into that story, and it's great to see. And I'm sure the real achievement isn't that they got more offers than Oxbridge. The real achievement is that these brilliant kids from a lot of their own hard work got offers to these places. But it
Yeah.
is interesting to see when you provide an equal playing field, let's say, of
Yeah.
education, people from all different walks of lives do well,
Yeah.
because a lot of these
Yeah.
kids at Brampton Manor, they are first generation or immigrants. They come to this country not even speaking English, and now they're getting offers
Exactly,
to
man.
Oxbridge. So
Yeah.
if you're offering that same level, if not probably a bit more of service and education, how much talent are we not developing? By virtue of that.
Exactly.
There's so much to talk around our education, and I feel like it's a challenging one because teachers do so much.
Yeah.
Their teachers, their parents, their counselors, their everything. So it's hard. And then even on that piece that I mentioned around, do private schools or do state schools want to tell their top students about these private school scholarships? It must be a bit of a conflict there, because they also want their school to do well, but they have that pastoral role too. I think it's something to be looked at.